Okay, so are we recording? I think we're recording. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. We're going deep this time into Surah Yunus.
The 10th chapter of the
Oh,
Quran.
10th chapter of the Quran, right? I always get that number wrong. Surah Yunus.
Mm.
And we've got a lot to cover about this surah. I've been doing some reading,
Pursue.
really fascinating stuff, and I'm really looking forward to picking your brain about it. But I think for starters,
Well, let me introduce myself first. I am an Islamic scholar. I have been studying the Quran and the Islamic tradition for over 20 years.
oh yeah, how rude of me.
Uh,
Please, tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself.
I've taught at universities and I've written books, and I'm really excited to share my knowledge with all of you today.
Perfect. That's exactly why you're here. So,
Yeah.
Surah Yunus, like I was saying, I did a little bit of reading myself just to prep for this. But one thing that really stuck out to me is the story of Prophet Jonah. Like, it's woven throughout the whole surah. It's not just a side note.
Yeah, it is.
Why is that?
It's a really central part of the surah. And it's interesting because the story of Jonah, or Yunus as we call him in Arabic, is actually a story that's shared across different religious traditions. It's in the Bible, in the Quran, and even in some Jewish texts.
So it's a story that kind of transcends any one religion.
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe for people who haven't heard this story before, can you give us like the Spark Notes version?
Well, Jonah was a prophet who was commanded by God to go to the city of Nineveh and preach to its people. The people of Nineveh were known for their wickedness.
So not exactly a dream assignment.
No, not really. And Jonah, well, he wasn't too thrilled about it. Instead of going to Nineveh, he actually decided to run away. He boarded a ship and set sail in the opposite direction.
I can't say I blame him, but you can't really outrun God, can you?
No, you can't. And the surah describes this incredible storm that erupts, threatening to sink the ship. The sailors, they're terrified, and they realize they have to do something drastic.
Let me guess. They draw straws, and Jonah's the unlucky winner.
You got it. They throw Jonah overboard, and as soon as they do, the storm calms.
Okay, but it doesn't end there, right? Because that's when the big fish comes in.
Exactly. A giant fish swallows Jonah, and he spends 3 days and 3 nights in its belly, praying for forgiveness.
It's such a vivid image. Like, you can almost feel how dark and claustrophobic it must have been.
The Surah really emphasizes this sense of confinement, of being trapped and alone, and it's in this darkness that Jonah finally turns to God, repenting for his disobedience.
Okay, so there's this whole running away and then coming back to God thing going on.
Yeah.
What's the surah trying to tell us with this story?
I think Jonah's journey is really a metaphor for our own spiritual journeys. We all make mistakes. We sometimes run away from our responsibilities. But the Surah reminds us that it's never too late to turn back to God, to seek forgiveness, and to get back on the right path.
So even a prophet chosen by God can mess up. It's kind of reassuring, actually.
It is. It shows that God's mercy is available to everyone, even those who have strayed.
So this idea of mercy and forgiveness, that's a major theme in Surah Yunus, right?
Absolutely. The Surah repeatedly emphasizes God's willingness to forgive those who repent and turn to him. For instance, there's a verse 107, that says, "And if God should touch you with adversity, there is no remover of it except him. And if he intends for you good, then there is no repeller of his bounty. He causes it to reach whom he wills of his servants, and he is the forgiving, the merciful."
So it's not just about Jonah, it's about everyone. It's a message of hope, like universal message for all of humanity.
Right. Because we all need reminders of God's mercy, especially when we're feeling lost or like we've made a wrong turn. We can always turn back to God. There's always that open door.
So if God is all merciful, all forgiving, then why all this talk about consequences? I mean, the surah doesn't exactly sugarcoat things. It talks about communities being wiped out, punishments.
Well, that is true. The Surah does talk about the consequences of rejecting faith. It mentions previous nations, previous communities who were destroyed because they refused to believe in God's messengers and persisted in their wrongdoing.
Like Noah and his ark, that whole flood situation.
Exactly. That's one example that comes up in the Surah. These stories, these examples from the past, they serve as warnings. They highlight the importance of heeding the message, of paying attention to the signs, and of making the right choices.
Signs, right? That's another big thing in Surah Yunus. It's like it's telling us to look around, pay attention, because there's evidence of God everywhere.
It's like the surah is saying, look around you. Look at the world around you, the creation, the heavens, the earth, everything in between. These are all signs of God's power, his wisdom, and his presence.
It's like a giant cosmic puzzle.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
And we're invited to try and put the pieces together.
And so those who ignore these signs, are they missing out on something?
The surah suggests they are. That by closing themselves off to these signs, they're closing themselves off to a deeper understanding of the world and their place in it.
So these prophets, they're kind of like tour guides then, helping us navigate this cosmic puzzle and see the bigger picture.
That's a good way to put it. They come with guidance, with warnings, with reminders of what's truly important. It's up to us to listen.
Okay, so we've got Jonah's epic journey, we've got this emphasis on mercy and forgiveness, and we've got these signs all around us. How does it all fit together? What's the overall message of Surah Yunus?
Surah Yunus offers this really profound reflection on the human condition. It's about our relationship with God, with ourselves, and with the world around us. It acknowledges our capacity for both good and evil, for faith and for doubt.
It's really relatable, even for someone who's not super religious.
Right. It speaks to those universal human experiences of searching for meaning, of questioning, of making mistakes, and of ultimately seeking forgiveness and guidance.
And the surah itself. It's not just like a dry lecture, is it? The language is beautiful, almost poetic at times.
The Quran is known for its beautiful language, and Surah Yunus is no exception. It uses vivid imagery, metaphors, and storytelling to really draw the reader in and convey its message in a powerful way.
Like, do you have a favorite verse or passage that comes to mind?
One that always resonates with me is verse 56, which states, "It is he who gives you life, then causes you to die, then brings you to life again. Indeed, mankind is ungrateful." It's a simple verse, but it speaks volumes about the cycle of life and death and reminds us to be grateful for the gift of life.
It's a powerful reminder for sure. So wrapping things up here, what do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from Surah Yunus?
I would say this. Surah Yunus invites us to open our hearts and minds to the possibility of something greater than ourselves. Whether you approach it from a religious perspective or not, it offers valuable insights into the human experience and challenges us to live more meaningful, more purposeful lives.
It's definitely given me a lot to ponder. And I bet our listeners are feeling the same way. So much to unpack here. I might have to read Surah Yunus again with fresh eyes after all this.
I think you should. You'll always discover something new each time you read it.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining me and sharing your wisdom. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.
And for everyone listening, keep those questions coming, keep diving deep, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.